Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion. A poetry discussion that comes to us from Langston Hughes. The poem in question is titled Life is Fine, and it reads as such. I went down to the river. I sat down on the bank. I tried to think, but couldn't. So I jumped in and sank. I came up once and hollered. I came up twice and cried. If that water hadn't have been so cold, I might have sunk and died. But it was cold in that water. It was cold. I took the elevator 16 floors above the ground. I thought about my baby, and I thought I would jump down. I stood there and I hollered. I stood there and I cried. If it hadn't have been so high, I might have jumped and died. But it was high up there. It was high. So since I'm still here living, I guess I will live on. I could have died for love, but for living I was born. Though you may hear me holler, and you may see me cry, I'll be dogged, sweet baby, if you're gonna see me die. Life is fine, fine as wine. Life is fine. The first thing that I wonder when reading about this poem is the matter-of-fact nature of the incidents involved. And it makes me wonder if there is a dereliction towards those types of ideas. You know what I'm talking about. Hard on YouTube to get these things across. Those types of ideas for creative individuals. And I think so. I think there is a dereliction towards those types of ideas for creative individuals because we have talked previously in a Langston Hughes video about the prevalence of dreams and dreaming to the poet Langston Hughes and what those things mean and why they are important and how often they are mentioned and what they mean to the creative type. But no matter how prolific one is with the idea of dreaming, no matter how many dreams one has, no matter how many dreams one is able to conjure, inevitably and invariably, as life drones on, those dreams, by necessity, become fewer. Why? Well, I have the dream to learn 100 languages. I learn my second language and it takes me 3 years. To learn 100 languages would take me 300 years. Okay, don't have that kind of time. Probably. I have the dream to travel the world and write a poem about every country I visit. It takes me an entire year to get the days off necessary to visit Mexico and the money saved to do so. Well, there's more than 80 countries in the world. Got to redo my dream. Even if it is not simply the scope of a dream which must narrow, but the number thereof, the variability thereof. Dreaming has to pinpoint as we get older. Because of this, the creative individual, the creative type, part of what the creative type means is, to a very large extent, when unchecked, the creative individual knows no stop. So, halfway through one project, I've got 4 or 5 more in my brain, and I have ideas sketched out for 3 of those. That's 6 projects right there, including the one that I am furthest through. Once life says hey there, you got to stop that. There's no point in doing that anymore. Well, at that point, the very essence of what it means to be creative is capped. The very cap on what one by which one defines themselves is named. At that point, the ideas that pass through the creative type's mind shrink and become fewer. And because of this, that definition that one has of themselves as the creative type is terminal. Now, what about athletes? At some point, your athleticism goes. Yeah, check the statistics. What about models? At some point, your looks and your beauty goes. Well, and I'm not talking about female models, I'm talking about male models as well, right? So, the athlete and the creative type both act, both move, both get up and go. The type of aggression that is necessitated by the athletic practice extenuates those statistics. This is the same type of principle, as well as the ability to contrive the means by which these things might occur, further branch off to where the creative type might suffer this fate. Whereas the ilk of individual who is running out of their dreams or their usefulness or their vitality through something like modeling or whatever it is, the ideation might not be there at the proper mixture with the aggression to act in quite the same way that it is with the creative type. But the actions that I'm talking about are not actually realized in this poem. If that water hadn't have been so cold, I might have sunk and died. If it hadn't have been so high, I might have jumped and died. Though you may hear me holler, and you may see me cry, I'll be dogged, sweet baby, if you're going to see me die. Our speaker here, each time, talks himself out of that dastardly act, that terminal focus. Our speaker here each time comes to a different realization, but it is not a different realization in the name of living, but through the practice of suffering. It was very cold, couldn't do it. It was very high, very scary. In this way, we have to question the sincerity of our speaker. Does our speaker mean what it is they're talking about? Does our speaker mean that life is fine, fine as wine, life is fine? Or is our speaker simply, okay, so does our speaker mean life is fine, or does our speaker mean those situations were themselves too hairy, too scary, too daring. That's the real question with this poem. And I don't know the answer. I think that more than anything, these situations that our speaker is presenting probably never happened. The situations that our speaker is relaying are probably simply things which were dreamed up in order to garner attention. But the ideation of these terrible things, the contemplation of these terrible things, and the attempt of these terrible things, where's the lines between them? Where's the dichotomy there? And is this idea the terminal idea? A seed which, once planted, cannot be undone. I don't know. I think so, but I don't know for sure. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. I hope to have you back tomorrow for another poetry discussion here on the channel. And as always, there are over 100 poetry discussions in the poetry discussion playlist here. If you enjoy this sort of thing, consider hitting that like button because it really does help me out here on the channel. And I hope to see you around here for the next video.